I would like to talk about an amendment that I filed along with my colleague, Senator Susan Collins of Maine, to support the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, the LIHEAP program. As the Senate continues to debate whether or not to bypass a long-standing presidential permitting process and essentially rubber stamp the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline, which, being clear, would largely benefit major oil companies and could have a harmful consequence on our environment, I want to take the opportunity to highlight a federal program that helps our country's most vulnerable citizens, particularly seniors, meet their home energy needs. The bipartisan amendment led by myself and Senator Collins, along with several of our colleagues, expresses the sense of the Senate that the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, better known as LIHEAP, should be funded at no less than the $4.7 billion annually to ensure that more low-income households, children, senior citizens, individuals with disabilities, and veterans are able to access this critical assistance. And I must commend Senator Collins. She and I have taken the lead on this effort over many, many sessions of the United States Congress, and her efforts are extraordinarily critical to the continued support for this program. And no surprise that, once again, we are both together urging our colleagues to support this program. LIHEAP is the main federal program that helps low-income families, seniors, and individuals with disabilities, and the growing number of veterans across the country pay their energy bills, providing vital assistance both during the cold winter months in the Northeast and the Northern Plains and across the northern part of the country, and also in the summer months in areas of the Southeast and Southwest where air conditioning is absolutely critical to the health and welfare of seniors. Unfortunately, every year we read of a very disturbing report, particularly of a senior who, because they don't have access to cooling, has a medical condition, sometimes fatal, and they simply can't afford the cost of air conditioning. So this is not a program that is regionally specific. This is a program that has a national impact all across the nation, and as such has to be supported. It's an indispensable lifeline that ensure recipients do not have to choose between paying their energy bills and affording other necessities like food and medicine. And also, the funding goes to, in my case up in New England, in many cases, small businesses like oil heating companies. They're the ones who actually get the payments. And it goes in other parts of the country to pay utility bills, which affect small business and individual ratepayers across a broad spectrum. So the benefits of this legislation is not just for the specific recipients, but also for the overall economy of our states and for small businesses, and that has to be noted. But what we also recognize is that there are many more households eligible that receive the benefits simply because the funding levels are insufficient to cover all other recipients. And now, despite bipartisan efforts that I've led over many years, again, with Senator Collins being right there, funding restrictions in 2011 and 2012, along with sequester cuts, have meant that LIHEAP funding has declined more than 30% since FY 2010, from $5.1 billion down to $3.4 billion. And this raises another bigger issue. You know, we have seen our deficit decline significantly from virtually 9% of gross domestic product now to about 2.8%. In fact, that is a little bit below the 40-year average of deficits in the United States. And it hasn't been because of just magic. It's because we've been cutting programs. And this is an example, one of those programs where we have cut very significantly. And it's a program that aids so many people in our community. And again, I'll emphasize, particularly seniors, people with disabilities. And this deficit reduction has been hard won, and one of the costs has been supporting these people. Now, the money has shrunk, so obviously the number of people serviced has shrunk. The LIHEAP funds, the number of households has declined by 17%, from about 8.1 million households to 6.7 million households. And they have seen this impact directly. Those receiving assistance have also seen their average LIHEAP grant reduced by about $100 down to about $400. This is estimated to cover less than half of the average home heating cost for a household this winter, meaning that many low-income families and seniors will have fewer resources available to meet other basic needs. Now, I must point out, we're seeing a temporary reprieve from very high energy prices, particularly oil prices in the Northeast, because of geopolitical developments in the price of oil. But one, it's not the solution. Still, the bills that these people face, even in this economic climate as well as meteorological climate, are significant and challenging to people of very limited means. So for many people, this is an issue of safety. It's an issue of their health. It's an issue of just being able to get by and make ends meet. So the need is clear. So, and I urge my colleagues to join me in support of LIHEAP and in support of this amendment. And in this context, and being proactive in terms of let's recognize something on a bipartisan basis that works, I do believe that I should comment at this moment on the underlying proposal, the Keystone XL pipeline. We understand that this Trans-Canada pipeline would move crude oil from Canadian tar sands, and one of the dirtiest sources of fuel on the planet. There are many ways to extract hydrocarbons. This is one of the most environmentally challenging ways, to refineries on our Gulf Coast. And constructing this pipeline runs, I think, counter to what we should be doing on a much broader basis, and that is to address climate change and protect the environment. I was struck yesterday, the Senate Armed Services Committee, and the President is a distinguished member of that committee and a very valuable member of that committee. We listened to General Brent Scowcroft and Zbigniew Brzezinski, two of the foremost experts on national security policy. General Scowcroft was George Herbert Walker Bush's national security advisor. Dr. Brzezinski was President Carter's national security advisor, was integral in negotiating the Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt. And I was struck when asked about the big issues that we face, that General Scowcroft said, well, there's two big issues, cybersecurity and climate change. And when you have these very authoritative, and again, on a bipartisan basis, essentially saying climate change is a big national security issue, that, I think, is the context we have to view so many things, and in particular, this issue of the Keystone Pipeline. And then the second issue is there's an obvious need in this country to create jobs. In fact, that, no pun intended, is job one for us. And there are jobs associated with this pipeline. And these jobs, if they're of short duration, they're still pretty good jobs. But the point has to be made that we probably have to do much more, particularly for our construction workers, than one single pipeline. You know, I've been told that the long-term employment of the pipeline, once it's built, is a very small number per personnel. But we have to do much more. That's why I think we have to be very serious about an infrastructure program that goes way beyond Keystone. Roads, bridges, sewers, all these things that we have let decline. And if you look at the spending levels, once again, a victim of our deficit reduction, a victim of the cuts we've made, we're at a level now where we're not doing what our fathers and our grandfathers did, and grandmothers and mothers did, which is basically invest, relatively speaking, a lot of money in building a productive America with infrastructure for us. We've sort of been missing in action for the last several years about doing those things that we used to do routinely, building new highways, building new sewer systems, improving our pollution systems, all those things. And we have to do that, and I think we also have to do it in the context, once again, of this climate change issue, of looking at alternative energy, not just replicating what we did 20 or 30 years ago, because literally it's a different planet. And according to the Blue-Green Alliance, a coalition of labor unions and environmental groups, Repairing America's crumbling infrastructure could create 2.7 million jobs across the economy and increase GDP by $377 billion while reducing carbon pollution and other greenhouse gas emissions. So it's not 42,000 jobs, it's millions of jobs. And it's not one project, it is a commitment to improving, advancing, rehabilitating our infrastructure in every part of the country. And at the same time, dealing with this issue of climate change, which is so central. So I would like to see us, as we move past this debate, move vigorously into a debate about a major infrastructure program. Now, there's another issue here too, and that is this debate about where is the oil going? Well, you know, given the global market for petroleum products, it could go to parts of the United States, but it could easily go overseas. And a lot of that is a factor of the price and the demand. And we've seen a lot of oil going into Asia particularly. I think that trend will continue for several reasons. One is that they have done less, relatively speaking, than many other parts of the world in terms of lowering their oil supply, moving to alternative fuels, having other alternatives. So the potential, I think, is that a significant, if not all, of this product, even though it reaches the Gulf Coast, will not be used in the United States. And that's a factor, I think, that we have to consider. Bypassing the administration's traditional approved process with respect to Keystone, I think, is not the way to proceed. We have to get our energy policies right. I think we have to be recognized with climate change. We have to be sensitive to a whole host of issues. And then we also have to recognize that energy policy is not just producing and getting the product into the marketplace. It's also making sure particularly very vulnerable Americans can afford these products, whatever the price may be. And that's where LIHEAP comes in. And I'm very, very pleased that once again, and finally, that this is a continuation of a bipartisan effort that Senator Collins and many others have pursued for the benefit of men and women and families all across this country. And when we're doing that, I think we're doing the best possible work we can for our constituents and our nation. And with that, Madam President, I would note the absence of a quorum and yield the floor.